machine is highly inexpensive, that this machine is extra lightweight. In fact, this machine weighs less than a can of Coca-Cola. If something weighs less than a can of Coca-Cola, I can put it in my backpack and take it door to door. Not only that, this $500 ECG machine operates on battery. And on a single battery charge, it can take 750 ECG scans. Not only that, this $500 ECG machine is extremely easy to use. Perhaps you can't see it in the picture here. This machine has only two buttons. There is a green button and then there is a red button. You push the green button, it works. You press the red button, it stops. As long as you know how to read traffic signs, you should be able to use this machine. This $500 ECG machine is creating exciting growth for GE in India. It has opened up a whole new market. But the real bonus is this machine is now sold in 90 countries, including in the US. It's creating vibrant growth for GE in the US. As an example, think about there is an accident on a highway in the US. An ambulance is going there. You can't put the $50,000 ECG machine inside the ambulance. But you can put this $500 pocket-sized ECG machine in the ambulance. First example of reverse innovation. Here is the second one. I can perhaps ask you what this building is, but since we are giving healthcare examples, you can guess this is a hospital. And most of you are probably familiar, this is a hospital in Bangalore, NH Hospital, it's a cardiac facility. And this is the lobby of this hospital. It certainly looks like a five-star hotel, but that's not the real point. The real point is, in this hospital, an open heart surgery costs $2,000. In the US, open heart surgery will cost upwards of $50,000. Because in NH Hospital in Bangalore, the cost of open heart surgery is 25 times less, does not mean their quality is 25 times less. In fact, this is another point that I want to drive home. Poor people don't want poor quality products. They have worked very hard for their money. They don't want broken down products. In fact, in open heart surgery, I don't even know how you can do poor quality open heart surgery. One measure of quality in open heart surgery is mortality rates 30 days after surgery. For NH Hospital, their mortality rates 30 days after surgery is 1.2%. The US average is 2%. So their quality is on par with the US, perhaps even slightly ahead. In fact, this is another point that people usually miss. Reverse innovation is not about lowering cost. No. Reverse innovation is about pushing the price-performance paradigm. It's about offering more quality at a dramatically lower price point. Lot more quality at a lot lower price point. In fact, strangely as it may seem, the quality requirements in poor countries tend to be more stringent than quality requirements in rich countries. By the way, when I use the word rich and poor countries, I'm not making any value judgment here. I'm not trying to say whether a country is more desirable to live or not. I'm strictly using the World Bank definition. World Bank says take the average GDP per capita and draw a line. Any country below the average is called a poor country. There are about 160 poor countries. And any country above the average is a rich country. Now, going back to my point about quality. Surprisingly, the quality for poor customers in poor countries tend to be more stringent than the quality requirements for customers in rich countries. Take, for instance, open heart surgery. If you do an open heart surgery on an Indian in the NH hospital in Bangalore versus doing the same open heart surgery on an American in Massachusetts General Hospital. The quality requirements in NH hospital for the same surgery has to be much more stringent. Why? For one thing, Indians tend to have bad hearts. Not bad people's hearts, but weak hearts. So the same surgery, when you do on an Indian, you have to have a higher skill. Then after the surgery, during the recovery period, the pollution in India is very bad. The hygienic conditions in India are not that high. Therefore, mortality rates in India tends to be very high. So if you adjust for those risk factors, the quality that NH Hospital has been able to achieve is truly remarkable. And I believe I did tell you, NH Hospital does not turn down any patient. They give universal access. If a patient cannot pay, they do it free. So much so, 60% of the heart surgeries in NH Hospital is done free of cost. And I believe I did tell you they make 45% gross margin. Better than Mayo Clinic. Better than Mass General. This is not a charitable organization. This is a profit-making organization. Imagine a company which gives away its products to 60% of the customers. It only charges for the remaining 40%. And for the remaining 40%, they charge 25 times less than what people charge in the US. And still they are able to cover the cost of all the 100% of the customers and still turn in 45% gross margin. As you well know, this hospital was started by Dr. David Shetty, who used to be the personal cardiac surgeon for Mother Teresa. That's where he got the inspiration to offer more value at a lower cost. Lot more value for a lot lower cost. I want to show you a short video just to give you a sense for Dr. David Shetty and what he has been able to accomplish.
With a population of over 1 billion, affordable healthcare is out of reach of a vast majority of Indians. Nearly 700 million people in India have no access to specialist care, either due to lack of reach or lack of affordability.
When I came back to this country, there was no cardiac surgery. So hardly any cardiac surgery. There was nothing like a pediatric cardiac surgery. So we started the whole concept of pediatric cardiac surgery.
In less than a decade since inception, Narayana Hrudayalaya has become Asia's largest cardiac care center. Surgeons at the hospital perform a large number of different cardiac surgeries and procedures, including complex pediatric surgeries. Today, the hospital performs as many as 30 to 35 heart surgeries a day and 70 to 80 cardiac procedures. Narayana Hrudayalaya also does the largest number of pediatric heart surgeries in the world. Each day, about 2,500 patients visit the outpatient department of the Bangalore facility alone. And yet, the hospital has achieved a price point affordable to the average Indian.
We are essentially a heart hospital which proved to the world that with $1,800 you can do a major heart operation. Essentially, we want to reduce the cost of high-tech healthcare, make it affordable to the citizens of this world.
Those in need of surgery travel to Narayana Hrudayalaya for treatment, and the hospital treats patients from across the world.
My daughter has a hole in the heart. Well, let me preface this. I also have a dual citizenship from the U.S. Lived in the U.S. for the most part. My mother lived with me, and she has cases. She's somebody I had to take to the hospital very often. She has diabetes in her home. So I took her. We live in New York. So I've taken her to the best hospitals as far as I know. And when I came in here to the cardiac unit, I was blown away. I mean, there's no way I can explain it. I get back so emotional because there's so many afford what I can afford. And in India, they're getting that help. And then it makes me wonder about countries like mine. So I'm paying for that shit. Am I saying the thing right? And people like him to develop this knowledge, not just for India, but for the world.
Ultra low cost, world-class quality, universal access. How does he do it? For instance, NH Hospital buys the same piece of equipment that you would see in Mayo Clinic or Mass General. If they buy the same piece of equipment, then they can guarantee the same high quality. But then their cost also is going to be very high. How is that cost 25 times lower? Because he uses the equipment 25 times more. Isn't this not what we learned in Manufacturing 101? If you have a fixed cost resource, if you optimize its use, you will bring the cost per unit down. He has essentially taken principles that Ford Motor Company and others invented 100 years ago in manufacturing, and he is simply applying it to healthcare. He is producing heart surgery on an assembly line, mass producing heart surgery. When I tell my American colleagues he is able to produce heart surgery on an assembly line, their first reaction is quality has to suffer. I ask why. When you mass produce automobiles, you don't complain about quality. Where does that suffer? What is so special about healthcare? In fact, counterintuitively, quality actually improves when you mass produce. Why? Because the surgeons in NH Hospital do so many surgeries. They have seen all possible complications. They are at the cutting edge of heart surgery. For instance, suppose imagine there are 10 different types of heart surgeries. Because of high volume, you can have a surgeon specialize in one of those 10. Specialization leads to high quality. Isn't this not what we learned in Manufacturing 101? I want to contrast the picture in the US. I teach at Dartmouth College. We have a world-class hospital in Dartmouth College, attached to Dartmouth College, called Dartmouth College Healthcare Center. If you go to our medical center, there will be an imaging center, and in that imaging center, there will be a $1 million X-ray machine, $2 million CAT scanner, $5 million MR machine, sitting there, used 10% of the time. 90% of the time, it is sitting idle. Because somehow in the US, we believe as Americans, we have a birthright to have that CAT scanner available to us whenever we need it. I ask why? Will you tolerate it if Ford Motor Company operated its manufacturing facility by keeping them 90% idle? Why do we tolerate this in medicine? In fact, Dr. Devi Shetty is now thinking of using robots to many parts of heart surgery, and thereby bringing the price point much below the $2,000. World-class quality, ultra-low cost, universal access. What is not to like? Just as we are talking, Dr. Devi Shetty is opening up a 2,000-bed cardiac facility in Cayman Islands, which will become operational from March of 2013. As you know, Cayman Islands is a 60-minute flight from Miami. And this heart hospital is set up to serve American patients at a fraction of the cost that it takes to do heart surgery in the US. Second example of reverse innovation. Here's the third one. What this is an artificial leg. For those humans who unfortunately lost their leg, we give them an artificial leg. In the US, an artificial leg will cost about $20,000. You probably don't know this gentleman. He is a citizen of Thailand. He lives in Thailand. His name is Dr. J. He actually got his medical degree from Northwestern. So he fully understands the Western School of Medicine. And Dr. J wanted to create an artificial leg for the amputees in Thailand. Of course, you can't give them a $20,000 artificial leg because Thailand is a poor country. Most of the Thai people rely on agriculture. They probably make $2 a day, and you can do the math. If I'm making $2 a day and somebody is selling me a $20,000 product, I have to work for 10,000 days just to pay for that product. If there are 200 working days in a year, that's 50 years I have to work. That does not mean amputees in Thailand do not need an artificial leg. In fact, they need it even more desperately as compared to an American, because many times they use their leg to earn a living. So Dr. J decided to create a $30 artificial leg. Because he set out to create a $30 artificial leg does not mean it can be poor quality. In fact, this is one of the points that I've been repeating. Reverse innovation does not mean lowering the price point. Reverse innovation is about doing more with less. It's about doing lot more with lot less. How can we offer dramatically improved value at a dramatically lower price point? And as I mentioned before, the quality requirements for customers in poor countries tend to be more stringent than the quality requirements for customers in rich countries. And that is true for artificial leg. The artificial leg for an amputee in Thailand has to have superior quality than the artificial leg for an amputee in the US. Why? For one thing, if you receive an artificial leg in the US, you are walking on nicely paved roads. Whereas in Thailand, you are walking on unpaved roads. That means you are putting a lot of stress on the artificial leg. Not only that, people in Thailand, unlike the US, they sit on the floor, cross-legged. And because the primary occupation in Thailand is agriculture, in agriculture, not only the land is uneven, but if you have an artificial leg and you're working in the field, it's completely wet. And people in Thailand don't just bicycle to work. They bicycle for work. They climb a tree for work. How do you make an artificial leg which is superior in quality as compared to an artificial leg in the US at a $30 price point? Again, one of the things that I want to stress in reverse innovation is when you're doing reverse innovation, start from a clean sheet of paper. Don't have any of your prior assumptions about how you make the products. Don't start with your $50,000 ECG machine and then say, how I can bring the price point down to $500. It'll never work. Don't start with your $50,000 heart surgery and then say, how do I remove cost to bring it down to $2,000? It's not going to work. Assume you just landed on Mars. You know nothing about nothing. Let's just create an artificial leg. The way Dr. J was able to do it, there are two important drivers of cost in an artificial leg. The first is raw materials. In the US, we use very, very expensive raw materials like titanium. What Dr. J did, one of his technological breakthroughs was he was able to create an artificial leg from recycled yogurt plastic containers. We throw them away in the US, is it not? Think about how much we waste in the US. He decided to convert waste into wealth. When he innovated an artificial leg using recycled yogurt plastic containers, not only cost went down, zero because those containers were thrown away anyway. But this is not about lowering cost. This is about improving quality while lowering cost. Actually, when he innovated with this material, what he found was the resulting artificial leg was extremely lightweight. Imagine an artificial leg with titanium, how heavy it is. The one that Dr. J came up with, the artificial leg was lightweight, comfortable, and durable. The second big cost element in an artificial leg is the cost of the fitters, people who fit the artificial leg. These are very expensive and highly skilled technicians. Obviously, Dr. J did not have a budget to pay for these expensive technicians. Neither such technicians are available in Thailand. That doesn't mean the need for fitting goes away. You have to find a breakthrough solution. You have to come up with an out-of-the-box solution. So what Dr. J decided to do was he trained amputees who received artificial legs. He trained them to fit artificial legs for others. These amputee technicians turned out to be a phenomenal way to shift the price-performance paradigm. For one thing, these amputee technicians brought down the cost of fitting because these are poor people. For them, even a modest amount was something they appreciated. In fact, it was so noble for Dr. J to provide employment to these amputees. But again, this is not about lowering cost. This is about improving quality while lowering cost. Actually, these amputee technicians were better fitters than the technicians who did the fitting in the US. Why? First of all, they approached this not as a job, but as a passion, because they got their life back. Because they got their life back, they approached this as God's work.